I didn't love the event. I was like, oh, like 50 sandbag squats, like that's just gonna hurt.
Part of the reason why you've improved so rapidly is that you just have been calloused. Alex Gazan becomes more resilient.
You're there to hang, and like it's not just like movements that you love or like your wheelhouse. Like you can hang in things even you don't like.
Today's guest is the 5th fittest woman on earth and the most improved female CrossFit Games athlete.
I think there's a huge time to grow in the sport, no matter who you are, where you don't need like magic sauce. You don't need really specific programming. You just need to show up and work hard. And I think that's where I was at. Like it was like, just show up and like put the work in.
One of the kindest athletes I've met, Miss Alex Gazan.
2023's most improved athlete, Alex Gazan from Rhino CrossFit.
But I never did it originally for it to become a job. I did it because I loved it. So I still can kind of have this like really healthy approach to it, emotionally, you know, like not being super stressed about, oh, if I don't win, like I'm nothing, you know.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. That was a nice intro.
Well, it's fitting, in my humble opinion, because you and I cross paths oftentimes during some of the most stressful times within your season, and you always stop to say hi, both at the games, at semifinals, at different events. You stop, you visit, you smile, you're always very warm. And that very much stands out to me because it's a very stressful time for you, and I really appreciate it, so it's important for people to know that about you.
Thank you.
Coming off the 2023 games, we chatted about it briefly offline. You are the fittest, the 5th fittest woman on earth. When I say that out loud and you get that ear-to-ear smile, what comes to mind?
I kind of just like, it's cool to reflect and just see a lot of like the hard work pay off, or like, it's still kind of like surreal in the sense of like when you say 5th, like it's like, oh, like that sounds really cool. But when you're in it, like I guess you don't really realize like that you're among the best. You just kind of like feel like you're in another competition. And then, I don't know, it's just still surreal.
So humble, but this was your second time at the games. And so the first time, it's almost like you're just happy to be there. And then the second time, maybe you got to taste elements of success, or there were certain things that you were reaching for that you couldn't quite grasp. And you have this level of experience and sharpened tools in your toolbox. How was it year 2 in comparison to year 1?
Oh my gosh, I would say like night and day difference. I don't want to say that like making the games in 22 was like a fluke necessarily, like, but I feel like it felt early, like I wasn't anticipating making it, and so to be there was just like the cherry on top of the cake. And I had no expectations of placement. Like I knew I still had some significant holes, and I just like didn't know where I would be compared to everyone else, but I knew I wasn't expecting like a top 10 finish, you know. So it was really fun, honestly. Like I remember like even if the events were super hard, I never felt stressed. Like, you know, when a workout's hard, but you feel stressed because like, you know, you need to hit a certain number or a time. Like there's that kind of hard, and then there's just hard because it's hard, but you're okay with it because you're just like working through it. And I felt that's kind of how like the 22 season felt. Like I wanted to work hard and do my best, but like it was just a really big learning experience. Like we'd come off the floor and I'd be like, add it to the list. Like this is what we're going to work on. Pretty much every event. But then this year, like I think after semifinals, like I guess every point in the season, like I got 5th in the open, 2nd in quarterfinals, 1st in semifinals. So I just feel like there was this like really weird cloud of like expectations and pressure from a little bit of everyone, like whether that's like your coach, like the community, like family, whoever, and or like intrinsically. So like, and I had no idea, right? Like you get to the games and it's a whole new rodeo. Like it's not like semifinals, it's not like the open. And so I like was comfortable voicing a goal of top 10. But once you start going, things kind of started changing.
Yeah, that word expectation definitely, it's a little heavy, right? Like you
Yeah.
feel the pressure on your chest a little bit. And, it's also reflective of the hard work that you've put in over time. And it's really cool to pause and look backwards because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't come into the sport necessarily with this tremendous prestige or notoriety. You kind of came in and Justin was like, I've got this really busy training camp with Danielle and Bethany and Carrie. Like, you can come sometimes, but I'm not sure, if I'll be able to, dedicate a ton of time coaching you. And it's like, you just kept showing up. You had this really healthy relationship with what I read, which is just getting your butt kicked consistently. You didn't allow it to define you. You just kept showing up, which I think is such a humble dose of courage for someone so young. I mean, just for context for people, you're only 22 years old now. You started this journey back when you were 16 years old. And it's very important. That's only a 6-year span. And who you've become in that process is very, very cool. But most importantly, the fact that you didn't come in with this huge, accolades and this like huge arsenal of being a former gymnast and coming in ready to kick everybody's ass. It was like you came in and just put your head down to work. What's that mean to you, knowing that like in the beginning, not necessarily saying they doubted you, they just didn't think you had the it factor, and then you developed the it factor?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel like I don't think I don't know how to explain this. Like, obviously things change a little bit as you get better because there's more stuff that you want to accomplish. But I feel like ultimately, like, I still feel the same that I did when I was 16. Like, and it's just, I want to show up, I want to do the work, and if it's good enough, then awesome. And if it's not, like, you just keep working, or you just realize that that's where you're at. And so I think I've always had a really healthy relationship with this sport. Like, it's really amazing that it's now my job, and obviously that adds like extra pressure because you need to perform for sponsors and stuff. But I never did it originally for it to become a job. I did it because I loved it. So I don't know, I feel like I still can kind of have this like really healthy approach to it, emotionally, like not being super stressed about, if I don't win, like I'm nothing,
No, it's a really healthy depiction. When I hear you speak about it, you perform really well. You obviously have so many different skills and strengths within your toolbox. You continue to develop them. But more importantly, Alex, you don't allow the sport to be your identity. And that's something I want to really lean into in today's conversation, because it's really easy to get those golden handcuffs where CrossFit is everything. It's the only thing you post. It's the only thing you talk about. And it's an addictive sport in some ways. And I've been victim to it. I think a whole onslaught of both mine and your friends have been victim to it. And it's not purposeful. It's just like, it's so fun. When you start to see the success, it's incredible. The community component and suffering with people is a magical thing. But too much of anything ends up becoming a problem. And then it ends poorly for most people in the form of burnout or different sorts of mental challenges or chronic fatigue, hormone imbalance, tons of injuries. And then isolation, because you feel like outside of CrossFit, you don't necessarily have the mindset to socially interact with people in different arenas. And I could continue on, down the list of that. For you specifically, though, being so young and carrying the load of expectation, how do you separate, right? How do you make sure that the sport is not your identity, but it still holds tremendous value for you?
I think for me, a big part of that is like my faith. Like, just for me, like, my identity is knowing like this world is temporary, and what matters is the impact you leave on other people and the love that you share. And like, especially in the sport related field, like, you're one injury away from not being able to compete, or you're like one circumstance away from not being able to compete. And so I think like really grasping that, and then you just get to take it for what it is. You get to enjoy the journey while you're in it, and just remember that eventually we're all going to be like 70 or 80 and not competing, you know, and you just have to, I don't want to be retired from the sport and look around and be like, I have nothing. Like, now what do I do? And so
it's a great lens that you possess being so young, recognizing that there's a whole world, and CrossFit serves as a part of that world. And it's such a cool sport, and there's so many amazing people in it. And it does continue to evolve and adapt and upgrade and all the magical things. But I want to backtrack a little bit. I think last time we spoke, I think you were at the gym and you had your big dog hanging out with you.
Oh yeah, dude.
It was a really cool conversation. Last time we kind of navigated some of your childhood and how you found CrossFit, but I want to recap that just a little bit. Where did your fitness kind of begin in your introduction to sport, and how did you find CrossFit? Trident Coffee is sponsoring this episode of the Invictus Mindset Podcast. My guys over at Trident taught me something really important this last year. That we are all a bundle of stories, both good and bad, and everything in between. At Trident, they're storytellers. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. They help create connections through symbology and storytelling that engage their customers on an emotional level, and this distinguishes them from other coffee brands. You can find Trident in Imperial Beach and in Coronado. They offer over 14 plus nitro cold brews along with dairy-free options. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from their keto bakery. All of these options will allow you to support your health and fitness journey with Trident Coffee. They're more than just a coffee company. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Once again, that's tridentcoffee.com. Use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Take your coffee experience to the next level. Two important factors for us over at Invictus Mindset are true care and attention to detail. My friends over at RX Smart Gear have been bringing innovative fitness tools to the market since 2009. From their award-winning Evo speed ropes to their amazing gymnastics grips to their line of inflatable fitness equipment, they're constantly looking to problem solve within the fitness industry. They're always allowing us to have our gear work for us rather than against us. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use discount code Invictus Mindset to shop their latest cutting edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you.
Yeah, so I grew up playing sports ever since I was like, I don't know, it was 5 or however old you can be to like join the little leagues. And then like middle school, high school, like I got really into lacrosse, and that was kind of my main gig. Like I actually wanted to play in high school, and sports just ended up being a really big like refuge for me, just dealing with my parents for a while dealt with substance abuse, and it was just a refuge. Like on the field, like everybody's the same and it doesn't matter what you're going home to. So I just loved it. Like I loved the idea of pushing your athletic abilities, and it was a really, really cool like God scenario as far as finding CrossFit. My health teacher and one of my friend's moms got together and went and spoke to the CrossFit gym kind of behind my back and was like, hey, like you need to like get this girl in the gym. Like I think it'd be really good for her, and she's athletic, yada yada. And so they essentially set me up on a blind date with Reagan and Karen at the gym, and the rest is history.
That's very cool. You mentioned Reagan Huckabee, incredibly legendary CrossFit Games athlete, has been a part of the sport for a very long time, and you used to babysit her children. What's your relationship like with Reagan, and how did that help foster a safe space for you when entering the CrossFit arena? Yeah,
Reagan's I don't even know how to fit her in one category. She's like my mom, my sister, my friend, like all the things in one. But honestly, all the people at the gym, so Karen McAdam, which you might know her as well, but her, Reagan, and Christine, like they just had a really no pressure like aura for me around it. Like they're like, hey, come work out. Like, if you like it, like, we'd love to have you there. And of course I loved it. So I just did class. Like, I feel like a lot of people, like, when I say I started at 16, they think I, like, dove in at 16. And I was just doing class a few days a week, like, supplementing lacrosse. And when I turned 17, I, like, wanted to try to make it as a teenager. So I trained a little more, but I still played lacrosse. I still, like, I did all the things. I did school, and they pretty much told me, they're like, don't, like, put all your eggs in this basket right now. Like, you have so much time, and, like, think bigger, think long term. And they just really cultivated, like, a really healthy environment for me to start.
That's great perspective for sure. It's almost like you had an introduction to CrossFit, but it was like you were dating CrossFit. You weren't like married to it at 16. And it's cool. It's cool to know that like it played a role in supporting your lacrosse, and then the lacrosse played a role in supporting your CrossFit. I also think something that's really interesting, and I'm curious of your thoughts here. I think this is important as adults, and I also think it's important as up and coming children or youth age demographic, and that is just kind of having different friend groups, right? Like it sounds to me like going to CrossFit, you got like an older demographic, which maybe that played a role in you being a little bit of an old soul, as I've heard you say before. But then also you got to be around kids your own age. So you got to, talk about all the similar experiences that you guys were going through in your development. What was that like socially, kind of having different friend groups and, commonalities amongst the sport in and of itself?
Yeah. For this question, are you referring like back to like when I started or now?
Yeah, back when you started, like I'm really curious around, like you obviously had the lacrosse group of friends and you're probably a school group of friends. And then you'd come to the CrossFit gym and you have a little bit of an older group of friends, but still people that you interact with around a common goal.
Yeah. I feel like I never really felt like I fit in much in high school, in the sense of like I wasn't super into partying or drinking, and I feel like I drifted apart actually from a lot of my like really close middle school friends once I kind of made that like line in the sand. Like I just kind of was no longer invited to like a lot of the things, not because they were trying to exclude me, they just knew I didn't really want to go. And I just felt like just everything that I was doing was just kind of very different. Like I was working, I was like trying to start being serious in like CrossFit or like whatever it was. I just felt like I was like very like dedicated and kind of like ready to grow up, or like I was already growing up. So as far as like friends go, like I felt like I was kind of just like friendly with everyone. Like I didn't have a lot of like super close friendships. Like I maybe have like a couple friends in high school that I still talk to like today, but just like friendly to everyone, just very generic friendships. And I think a big chunk of mine were from the gym. Like I'd hang out with Karen and Reagan a lot, and my friend Alex, I met her at the gym, and Robin. Like there's just like a ton. I met most of my really good friends honestly at the CrossFit gym.
That's cool. There's a special bond that comes through suffering. And I also think at such a pivotal moment, especially as you categorized before, just challenges at home. Your parents going through some substance abuse. Intrinsically, that's very challenging for someone so young. And it sounds to me that like CrossFit almost felt like a little bit of a family orientation for you. And it was the one place where you really felt loved and understood. And if you ever didn't, it was almost like, oh, I can work harder and I'll find this.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think now too, like, I feel so lucky. Like, Justin and Ashley, they're like family. And like, that's been so cool to have like a coach and a support system that is like family. Like, I'd go hang out and be like, have dinner, or just like me and Ashley will meet at the park and just hang out. And it's been really cool to like create more family through the sport.
Did you know when you were, I'm going to say trying out, I don't know if you necessarily tried out for underdogs, but did you know when you entered the underdog space that it was going to be so family oriented, or what was kind of your goal when you decided to make the move to Underdogs Athletics there in Vegas?
Yeah, like looking back on the process, like, so when I had just like gone and like hopped in for some workouts, like I was like scared out of my mind. Like every single day I'd be like driving to the gym, and like the list of excuses would like go through my head, like, like maybe you have to work today, like maybe you're not feeling good, like anything to like maybe turn around, because like I was nervous, like, and as much as like I did get my ass kicked every day and I was okay with it, like it still sucked. Like you just got like nervous. You didn't know what the workouts were gonna be because I wasn't on programming. I was just like following what they were doing.
Showing up
And
blindly, just like, you know what, whatever it is, I'm jumping in and I'll suffer the consequences along the way.
yeah, and so like Justin would like give me a cue here or there, and he was always super friendly, and I could tell he was obviously super dedicated to the girls and Matt and Tola, like everyone that was there. He was like really hands on with, and so when I had originally asked him, he was like, "Let's talk after the season," and I was like, "Okay," and then the season had ended and. We chatted and he kind of like scared me a bit because he like started talking for like 10 minutes about how he's busy and like he's gonna start being like selective of who he's taking on, and so at that point in time I had no idea what our relationship would like evolve to, but at the end of that 20-minute conversation he's like, yeah, like we'll take you on. I was like, oh, like okay, you could have started with that. So we
Left you on the edge a little bit.
Yeah, so we started working together, and like even like in the beginning, like I would say like we weren't as close as we were now. Like he was still very focused. Like he had Danielle and Carrie was training for Rogue, and there was just like a few like things where he was really focused on a lot of the girls, and I understand that, like, right, like sports aren't fair, and like there is a totem pole, and he had those girls as a priority, and so I kind of just like we worked together, but I feel like I got a lot of my improvement from like being just like around everybody, like in the environment. And then I would say like this last season, like our relationship really flourished, and like the coach athlete dynamic has been really cool, like seeing that grow. And yeah, like I said, it kind of just like slowly evolved to like now he's like a father figure, and it's just really cool.
That's cool. Did you feel in those early stages that you were like fighting for his attention, where you were like, oh, I'm not one of these supreme athletes that comes in with a resume yet? Did you think of the term yet? Did you think you would get there? Or at that time were you just like, I'm going to prove them wrong. Every day I'm just going to keep showing up. I don't care if I get validation or cues or if I finish last. Eventually I'm going to get these girls and start finishing first.
Yeah, that's a good question. What comes to mind, honestly, is like Justin has a few like tales of like when he's pumped. So like if you do really well, he'll like give you this like let's fucking go, or like he just does this like head nod thing. He has a few things, and like I feel like every once in a while, okay, like I really want one of those. Like I need to do something good. But it was never like a like, oh, I'm fighting for attention, because I just like I feel like I just understood. Like it wasn't like a, oh, he's not like paying attention to me right now. It's like he will when he needs to, and maybe he didn't need to, you know. Like I think there's a huge time to grow in the sport, no matter who you are, where you don't need like magic sauce. You don't need really specific programming. You just need to show up and work hard. And I think that's where I was at. Like it was like just show up and like put the work in. And I think once you get to a point where like not necessarily where you're plateauing, but where like you have established a lot of the basics, that's when like coaching and like more specific things kind of keeps moving the needle.
Yeah, I definitely align with that. I think that's a really healthy observation that I hope a lot of people heard that right there. I'm going to reiterate it for you. And that is, so many people don't need the magic sauce or this really strategic programming right off the bat. They just need to show up. They need to practice the magic sauce of consistency and learning probably how to push, how to pull, how to hinge, how to squat, and then how to integrate some of the monostructural things as far as capacity and just alignment with a baseline of fitness and strength. GPP, general physical preparedness, as most people would categorize it. And then from there, you probably have the integration of skills. Then from there, you probably have the integration of skills under fatigue. This episode is brought to you by HVMN, Health via Modern Nutrition. They launched the world's first ketone drink in 2017, and then in 2022 launched the version 2 of their exogenous ketone product line called Ketone IQ. I found that incorporating ketones into my morning routine increased my daily focus and energy. The beauty of this product is that you can stack it. It doesn't even have to replace your morning routine. My morning routine, looks like taking the dog on a walk, hitting my daily shot of ketone IQ, hopping in the cold plunge, and then finishing it off with a nice Trident coffee while I soak up some morning sunlight. Try out some ketones for yourself by using the code Invictus for 20% off Ketone IQ. Ketones are a super efficient fuel for your brain that leaves you feeling energized and clear-headed. Give it a shot. I promise you won't regret it. Once again, use code Invictus for 20% off Ketone IQ. Move fast and break shit. This is one of the core values at LSKD and something that we fully resonate with here at the Invictus Mindset Podcast. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. Through my experiences with LSKD products and their team members, I have found a brand that I can call home that keeps me performing at my highest level through fitness and business. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer, so I can go from training at the gym directly to meetings, client consults, running errands, or preparing for podcasts. The LSKB vibe has finally reached San Diego, and we want you to experience it too. Go to us.lskd.co to start shopping today. We want to inspire you to chase the vibe. And then at that point, you're probably close to like a semifinals arena. And it's at that point, it's like, all right, we need to start trimming the fat. We need to lean into the weaknesses. We need to overdevelop the strengths and start customizing the approach a little bit. So I think it's cool that you had that perspective early on. Was that kind of because of your association with sport and lacrosse coming up, where you already had a relationship with it? It wasn't like you got to CrossFit and that was your first relationship with sport and understanding a coaching dynamic. Where did that come from for you?
Yeah, I think like I love having a coach, obviously. Like I had one in lacrosse, and like it's always nice to have that feedback, both good and negative, and like have that relationship. But with CrossFit, like I guess I didn't really have a coach when I started. So like Karen and Reagan and Christine, like they would coach me like if I did class and stuff, but like when I started doing open gym, it was very like, I'm just working out with you. Like, obviously they'll help me if I needed like, hey, how do I do this? But like, it wasn't like, hey, this is your programming, like come to the gym at 3:00. Like it was like, hey, like this is what I have today, like come jump in. And so I guess I just got really used to not having a coach in CrossFit and just like showing up and doing some workouts. And I could see like the needle moving, like just by showing up, like I was getting better. And when I moved to Vegas, I followed Forge by Zeus, like the template, because a lot of people at the gym were following that. So I just followed like that, and I would cherry pick it and like do what I wanted. And I kind of just lost where I was going with this point.
It makes sense though. Like for you, it was just the sheer exposure to CrossFit, and then from there, your natural competitive juices kicked in. I also think you probably had elements of observational learning because you probably watched Reagan and Karen and some of the other athletes at your first CrossFit gym. And that added tools to your toolbox. You're like, okay, how do they do that? Why were they so fast? Let me take note of that. Okay, when I have time, let me practice that skill. Let me practice that skill over and over again until it becomes unconscious competence and you can apply it without thinking too much. I also think, contrary to how you kind of described it, just imagine like you going to a all-around fitness or anytime fitness or a 24-hour fitness where they have maybe a CrossFit section. And let's say you had just the main site and you pulled that up and you're going from lacrosse to that. You probably don't execute it as well as when you went to the CrossFit gym. And so even though you didn't have like a formal coach like you do now, I almost feel like you were surrounded by people that were all coaches. They were motivating, they were inspiring, they had accountability. You knew that they were going to be there. And if you weren't, they'd probably text you and be like, Alex, where are you? Like you said, you're going to be here. And then simultaneously, it's like they give you a couple cues here and there. You're not getting that other places. And so I think it's important to like highlight that value. And the reason why I say it that way is like that's how I started as well at Valley CrossFit, where like I didn't really have a coach in the beginning, but I was training with Becca Voigt and Chris Clever and Lindsay Valenzuela and and Katie Hogan and some of the people that have been in the sport for a while. And then over time, like they became my coaches. But in the beginning, it was like, hey, can I just like jump in? And then they would like yell at me about things, get annoyed with me about other things. But like, that was all like, okay, I'm tracking. I'm adding these tools to my toolbox. It's going into the file cabinet. I'm upgrading the operating system. And then over time, you improve. Oh, I need to do that. Oh, I need to not do that. And so it's this awesome downloading process within the human experience, within the CrossFit space, that I think is cool, because in your case, it happened organically, as opposed to like, you're a great athlete, you're super strong, we're going to make you into this CrossFit phenom. And at that point, it almost seems like the expectations get unmanageable, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Expectations are such a weird concept, right? Like, I was thinking about this with like Mal and Haley, right? Like, they stepped away this season for what sounded like mental health on both cases. And obviously, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but if we're speculating, it sounds like just like the pressure and the just like abundance of their whole career, so like kind of got the best of them. But it's funny because on the outside looking in, you're like, man, like just like show up and have fun. You're like even if you get like 20th, like you could still go and like compete. But it's like so funny because you say that or you think that, but once you're in those positions, it's like a whole totally different ball game, because you have like sponsors and like it's so crazy how much can pile up.
Yeah, I think you make a really great point there. I was very fortunate to connect with Haley Adams a couple weeks ago, and it is so cool to see the maturity she possesses, to hear about the patience she had, the pain she endured, and how she just leaned into that. She didn't run away from it, and she really put her hand out, asked for help from the appropriate people. And I think it's a really healthy thing to do, because she got in so young. It became identity. The pressures became so heavy. And what's so cool is that she had the courage to make that move, because I think that's going to have a trickle-down effect on other people that are maybe experiencing similar things. This little pocket box that we carry and Instagram can be an amazing tool, but it can also feel overwhelming at times, right? The sponsor obligations, the deliverables of posts and stories, connecting with fans, the game of analytics. It can really get expensive on the headspace. What are your thoughts in relation to those guys and how they've kind of overcome it? But what advice would you give to other people that are potentially experiencing something similar?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on them too. Like, I think it's really like powerful that they like were able to make those choices, because it's obviously not easy. Like, you risk sponsorships, you risk like whatever that might be. So I think it's really amazing that they did what they needed to do for themselves. But I also like the most like protruding thought I have is like, how did it get so bad? Like, and that's not necessarily on them, but like that's on their support team and like the people around them. Like, people have a duty to like check in on your people. Like, how did their coaches let it get to that point? Or I don't know. I just like, that doesn't sit with me, like that it got so bad. Cause like the way I feel, I'm like, man, like if I was ever starting to feel like that, like I would hope that someone in my corner would be like, hey, it's okay, like we can back off, like we can do this. And like maybe that did happen, maybe it didn't, I don't know. But those are kind of,
you know what I really think too? Sometimes those that we're closest with, we don't really know them. We don't take the time to like check in. And when I say check in, I don't mean like a verbal check in. I mean like a frequency check-in, like leaning in a little bit, like let me check out their body language. Let's see their habits. Let's check in on like the consistency factor of just patterns. How are they feeling? How are these other deliverables that are maybe nonverbal, and really listening to the all-encompassing human? Okay, I've noticed they've trained 7 days in a row for the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Maybe it's time for some fun. Maybe it's time to go out to dinner. Maybe it's time for just a nature adventure and some sort of disconnect. And I think that's something that I think is a really great question, or honestly just great advice for people. And you're amazing at that, where you're like, I don't wake up loving thrusters all the time, right? But you know that like you're going to grind and do them when needed. But then there's other times where you've written and said that you love your rest days. You love hikes. You love adventuring and spending time with friends. Will you share some of your insight of those things and how important they are to the journey?
Yeah, I think like kind of just circling back around to like it not being your identity. It's like essentially keeping your other baskets, like keeping some eggs in there. And if like for me, like I'm not super, like I don't need to like go for a hike or like there's not necessarily a lot of things I have to do, but I'm like a super social person. So if I feel like I haven't like connected with like a lot of people or my friends, like that's where I start to feel empty. And usually that like happens on a hike or like on those activities. So for me, that's like where they come into play. But yeah, I feel like if you don't have other things going on, then it does consume you. CrossFit will like consume your whole headspace and you like can't get away from it.
For sure. What are your thoughts on presence in the sense of, sometimes when you're burnt out, you're at CrossFit, but you're actually thinking about like, man, I wish I was laying in bed watching Netflix, or I wish I was, on that adventure that I saw X, Y, and Z person post on Instagram. We are beyond excited to be working with Wizard Sciences for total brain and body optimization. This partnership came through personal experience with the benefits of their incredible product line and a deep human connection with their founder and former guest, Ion Mitchell. The Olympic RX supplement is created to enhance your overall training. When taking this, do not expect your body to feel different, but look for key indicators within workouts to see what this product can really do. I found increases in my strength and that I had an extra gear when working through tough cardio sessions. The Olympic contains beta-alanine, removes inflammation and oxidative stress at a mitochondrial level, increases muscle recruitment, and is full of carbon-60, which is considered the ultimate anti-aging and anti-inflammatory weapon available. Give Wizard Sciences a try and become as close to limitless as you can get. Use code Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order. Once again, that's Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order. But then when you flip the script, you're actually doing those fun things and you're like, man, I really should be training right now. Like I should be putting in the work. And you almost guilt yourself for allowing those opportunities of relaxation or recharging. And it's really challenging to be fully present in each task that you're in. Is that something that you ever experience?
Maybe on like a small scale, but I would argue that if you're experiencing that, then there's already like, there's a bigger fish to fry. Like there's a major imbalance. Otherwise you wouldn't be feeling those things as much. I start to feel that way maybe towards the end of training, towards the games, but that's mainly because, so like my husband, he works in California. We live in Vegas, but he does seasonal work in California. And so when the season starts, so like February, March, he leaves. And at first it's like totally fine. Like I'm like, okay, I'm just like training, things are good. And I feel really present in training. And then it's kind of like towards the end when he's been gone for a while and like I don't have that person to just like watch a funny movie with at nighttime or like check out from the gym. Like that's when I notice like my headspace gets a little skewed and like I feel like I'm missing out on like life because I feel like I'm just like only in the gym. I come home and I'm like with my own thoughts, which are usually revolved around the gym at that time. And that's always like a good reminder to me, like how none of it really matters when you don't have like the people to share it with.
That's such a great line. Nothing really matters when you don't have the people to share it with. It's a really important perspective to have in your arsenal. When you look back on your life so far, Alex, I'm just trying to understand how the gears and the wheels spin for you, that like the intrinsic factors. What would you say is your like biggest form of adversity that you've overcome up until now?
That's another interesting one because I don't think there's like one moment. I think for me it is like there's just been like a very long string of like singular events that happen, and they always happen like right when I think that path, like that chapter has been closed, and then something else happens. And so I think for me it's like just adaptability to like shitty situations, and then also like seeing people that you love hurting is like probably my biggest adversity. And like I think hurting comes in different forms, whether that's like physical, mental, whatever. And that's like been the hardest for me, is like not being able to fix that hurt for them.
Yeah, totally. I can definitely align with that. And it's sometimes not about fixing. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm holding space for you. I'm here when you need me. And just sheer presence of like, you have somebody to reach out to. I think that's a really cool thing. Is that something that you find is pretty motivating in your training, where you feel like your training is preparing you to be ready at all costs to support yourself and support others?
I don't know if I feel like my training goes that deep. Like as far as like CrossFit training, I just feel like I want to be good at CrossFit, so like I want to work hard. But I think it's an example of like, I think I can be an example to like those in my life. Like, hey, if you want something, like you can do it. Like you just have to make the hard choices. Like, because CrossFit isn't easy choices. Like it's a 24/7, 7 days a week commitment to be one of the best. Like, and I think I really realized that like the past couple of years, it's like, yeah, you have a rest day, but that rest day means, have you like tracked all your food, or like not tracked, like have you ate all your food? Have you stretched? Have you slept? Like, did you eat something that you'll probably feel the next day when you're biking? Like, it's just like there's decisions every single day that affect the whole week, and you can't really clock out. So I think like, I don't necessarily feel like when I'm training to face adversity, but I feel like I'm setting an example of like doing something hard.
I like that. I also think it's really interesting how we as human beings, whether in or out of CrossFit, the decisions we make do positively or negatively impact our life. And they do compartmentalize on occasion, and other times they like stack, right? Like one bad choice could be like a domino effect into a whole bunch of other bad choices. I think I heard Pat Vellner talk about it. He goes, you can spiral up, but you can also spiral down. And it's this game of momentum and really trying to make the best choices consistently over time. And I'm just curious. I think I saw on a Swolverine article, which is a supplement brand that I think you still work with. And they asked you, like, what is the motivating factor for you to get out of bed? Like, what is it about CrossFit that, like, you're like, oh, I'm excited to attack this workout today? Or what is the intrinsic motivation?
Yeah, I think the idea of like not leaving any stone unturned, like I just want to see what's possible. Like if I put my best effort forth and do the things, like I'm competitive, like I'm an athlete, like you want to just like see what you're capable of, and hopefully that's the best. And yeah.
I like that. One of my favorite quotes is, the pain of suffering is way better than the pain of regret. And it almost, what I'm hearing from you is like, hey, I want to turn over every stone and see what I'm capable of. And it is really cool because you continue to improve year after year. And I know you've been asked about it 300 times, but a 270 bench press is really like, it's eye-opening. It's an eyebrow-raising thing that you've done before that I'm sure got tons of notoriety. Everybody under the sun chatted with you about it. But it's also one of those things that's like, you just have that. Your upper body strength is incredible. Legless rope climbs, pegboard, you know, your upper body pressing and pulling seems pretty freaking magical. And that is something that is an it factor that separates you from a lot of the other girls, because that is something that's typically challenging, is upper body pushing and pulling for most female athletes. So it definitely highlights something that you're like, I've got something that you don't have, whether that's genetic or whether that's something you've worked on. It's like, it's something that you've got in your toolbox no matter what. How does it make you feel to know, you know that already, but also to hear me say it? It's like part of your scouting report now, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I feel like I could take credit for it, but I feel like it's just like a genetic thing. And like obviously you have to work hard for your genetics to like
For sure.
play a part. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I bench pressed a good bit in high school, like in my lifting class and with my dad. But like it was just kind of one of those things where I realized I was really good at it. And but it's exciting. Like it's fun to like see a workout. Like for example, the end of semifinals last year, which was the 10 legless rope climbs.
That was an awesome workout to watch with you and Delugos, by the way.
Thanks. But like it was really cool to like be like walking to it, and like I was stoked. Like I had a smile on my face. I wasn't nervous, and like you look around and everyone's like petrified. And like it's kind of a cool feeling to like not be afraid of certain workouts, or like just know that you have the physical capabilities to like attack them. And or like alpaca. Like it was a terribly hard workout, don't get me wrong, but like I wasn't afraid of it, and like that's a cool
What was
feeling.
alpaca again? What was the workout?
124-foot sled push, descending in weight as you go. Then 3 rounds of 2 seated legless rope climbs up and down to 15 feet. 12 kettlebell clean and jerks with the 53s, and then you like pushed your sled back as you went. So like you put the kettlebells in, pushed whatever 124 is divided by 3. I think it's like 40 something. 40, and then you went back, you did your rope climbs, kettlebells, 40 feet.
Gotcha.
Rope climbs, kettlebells. Yeah, it was like a really hard workout, but it was cool to like not be afraid of it.
I like that a lot. What are your thoughts on Adrian Bosman's shifts in program design? The last 2 years he's been programming, and we saw some unique complexities where, you know, the handstand obstacle course is always getting fancier every year. We're seeing the parallettes, we're seeing pirouettes on boxes, strict handstand push-ups. The standard continues to upgrade and change wall facing this year, which is probably an advantage for you, but a disadvantage for most. And then, you know, seeing the complexity with the jump rope, right? The double under or the single under crosses in semis and quarters, and then the double under crosses, obviously. What are your thoughts on some of the program design that's being implemented? And then also, as you just mentioned, the L-seated legless rope climb. This episode is brought to you by Mush. My friends over at Mush created an incredibly cool product of ready-to-eat overnight oats. And for those of you that listen to the podcast often, you know simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And Mush has done just that, as their products have no more than 7 clean ingredients that are dairy-free, gluten-free, with no added sugar. Mush started right here at Invictus, as they had a vision to create convenient, healthy, and clean nutrition. And this landed them on Shark Tank, where the famous Mark Cuban invested in them. Now they're found in retailers all over the country, including Costco, Sprouts, Target, and Whole Foods. Check out my friends over at www.eatmush.com.
Yeah, personally, I love it. I love, like, I like his idea of, like, making things harder in the sense of, like, you're actually testing a strength component or a skill component rather than, I'll use handstand push-ups, for example. Like, I personally really dislike keeping handstand push-ups. I'm not that great at them, so that's probably why. But I just feel like my neck always hurts. Like, my back will usually light up if it's paired with, like, any other hinging movement. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's not as much a test of shoulder strength as it is just, like, I don't even know, like flinging your body
It's
around.
just a test of capacity and your ability to smash your head into the ground in some ways. I'll say it for you.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. But whereas, like, the new standards of handstand push-ups, like, it's a shoulder capacity movement. And it's like, can you do that? And, like, I like what else has he changed? Like, I like a lot of the gymnastic stuff. The only, like, complaint I would have is, like, an event like the handstand medley or the inverted medley that we had at the games, there was no buffer to separate the gymnasts from everybody else. So, like, in an event like that, like, I'm fine with the new skills, like, make us learn, like, make us adapt, but, like, maybe throw in a bone where it's like, okay, like, for people that didn't grow up doing gymnastics for 20 years, like, is there an element where we could try to fitness our way through this? Like the echo press handstand, like even though it was mostly handstand push-ups, at least there was like a little bit of biking, right? Like you could do something.
I think you're speaking my language right now, and I think that's totally fair. Where I would say that, and I think it's specific to Adrian a little bit. There is a little bit of a gymnastics bias, and I do think it's negatively affecting certain athletes. Quite frankly, Jason Hopper, right? He's got this football athletic background, and if you throw in something in the middle of that handstand medley, now he has the opportunity to compete because he can fitness and kind of utilize grunt work to compete with the other athletes in the field. But when it is so gymnastics bias, like you're going to see the Danielle Brandons and the people that were gymnasts for a very long time tremendously executing that. And if it's an entire event, that's points that you're not grabbing, and then you're just sneaking down the leaderboard rather than up the leaderboard. I would like to see some more like athletic modalities, whether that's just like a ball toss or, you know, pushing some sort of blocking dummy, or allow athletes kind of in the caliber of like Elijah Muhammad to do certain things. I mean, even burpee broad jumps of some capacity or something to really test like brute athleticism of like just grunt work, speed, strength, your ability to jump, your ability to move an external load. That is one little thing that I think you make a really good point.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's like a can of worms, right? Like if you complain about an all gymnastics event, does that mean there's no single modality weightlifting event or like a 5K run or a bike? Like, and I think for the most part, like I think everyone would be happy with mostly just CrossFit events. Like I don't think there has to be like a specialty event, or if there is, like I don't know. It's definitely a hard question to answer because I feel like I kind of sit in the middle of the spectrum. Like I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, but it's fun to have the conversation, right? Like I actually think he's doing a really good job. So this is not a knock on Adrian Bosman
totally.
or the CrossFit Games at all. It's just, I think it's always fun to be able to have these types of conversations and play ping pong within conversation to think, how can we move the needle in the right direction? If we're all just agreeable and yes men and women across the board, the sport doesn't evolve. It doesn't improve. And that's exactly, in my humble opinion, part of the reason why you've improved so rapidly is that you just have been calloused time and time again, training with people that are just so high caliber that over time, what happens? Alex Gazan becomes more resilient. She goes from, I'm happy to just make the games, to, I'm here to make sure these mofos remember my name. And this last year, you were honored with the Most Improved Award, finishing 5th place at the 2023 Noble CrossFit Games. Now that you've had some time to separate from that experience, how was it, and how are you feeling about your improvement over the course of a year?
Yeah, I mean, it's still kind of surreal. Like, obviously, I'm super stoked, and like, it was really cool to see a lot of that hard work like pay off, and kind of just solidify like that belief in myself. I think I posted this, but like, there was like a pivotal moment for me Friday night at the games, and like, I just really felt at that moment like, okay, you belong, and like the podium just was like, it became a reality, not just like a dream or like a hope. Not necessarily for this year, but just in general. And that kind of lit a fuse for like the years to come. And I don't know, I just feel really excited. Like I feel like I'm in a really happy, like excited place.
I like that. What was that pivotal moment that you're kind of hinting at?
Sorry, there's a fly. That day, so we had alpaca that morning. I got third in that event with some hiccups, which
you flipped your shoes off, girl. That went everywhere.
Yeah. One came off, but I did take them both off. And then there was a sandbag ski event, which I was not stoked about it. Like I just like felt super drained from the morning. Like I think I spent a lot of like adrenal energy just from everything that happened with my shoes and like the excitement and the frustration and all the feelings. And I just felt tanked, and I didn't love the event. I was like, oh, like 50 sandbag squats, like that's just gonna hurt. Like not even like physical like grunt work hurt, just like pain, like it's just gonna be like shitty. And so I like had resigned myself to like a low finish. I was like, just like you just have to go, you have to at least try, like go do something. And so to like get second in that when I was like not feeling myself, like I was like, wow, like okay, like that's cool. And then I got eighth in Helena, and it just kind of like reflecting on the day, like really showed me that like, hey, like you're there to hang, and like it's not just like movements that you love or like your wheelhouse. Like you can hang in things even you don't like, or maybe when you're not feeling your best. And it just made me like excited.
That's cool. You almost start to like respect yourself more because, if I were to think of Alex Gazan, I wouldn't think like, oh, sandbag squats are her jam.
Yeah.
And it's cool, like when you're negotiating with yourself in the middle of that workout, you've got the vibe and the intensity of the Coliseum. You've got all the other girls kind of around you. They're pre-fatigued as well from other events. What was the personal negotiation like for you once you kind of overcame some of the emotional adversity and you're like, all right, here we go. I just got to give my best shot.
Yeah, honestly, I literally told myself, like, walking onto the floor, like, you're either going to try or you're going to look like an idiot just standing there. So, like, you got to do something. And like I said, I told myself, you just got to get through this event. Like, you got to get to the next one. So I just started skiing, and I was like, okay. And then I picked up the sandbag, and it felt like shit. But I was like, okay, just do 5. Okay, just do 5 more. And then I was like, well, shoot, like, you're either going to have to drop it and pick it back up or just try to finish. And I made it to 30, and at that point, I didn't really know where I was, like, still relative to other people. I just, like, was like, okay. And then on the skier, like, I feel like naturally just being, like, I'm not going to say, like, a bigger athlete, but, like, I have decent mass, and, like, my upper body's a strength. So I feel like I can put forth less effort on the skier, but still get, like, more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, just like ski. So like I was skiing, I think the second skier at like 1,000 to like 1,100, which isn't like a crazy fast pace, but I was just like, okay, just like breathe through it. And then I like finished, and I like saw that it was just Laura in front of me, and I saw the clock, and like there was time to finish, and I was like, oh shit. And I think like at that moment, like the adrenaline kind of spiked, and I was like, okay, you can do 20 sandbag squats. But up until then, I was like, fuck this workout. Fuck this workout.
I appreciate the honesty. I also think a big takeaway that I think will help support other people in their journey is thinking of it in just like small chunks, right? Like you said, you were thinking, hey, just do 5. Okay, just do 5 more. And it's this power of negotiation where you're practicing self-talk of just chipping away. It's one foot in front of the other, as opposed to this, I have to do 30 repetitions, which becomes daunting and overwhelming.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like just on paper, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is going to be so hard.
When you look back at the games, was there an event that was your absolute favorite that you were just like, I had a blast doing that. I will forever remember that experience?
I really enjoyed the parallel traverse double under like sled pull, mainly because it was like an event that wasn't like steal your soul. Like you weren't like in a tremendous amount of like physical distress. You just kind of had like a really big arm pump, and like it was fun. Like it's fun to like dink around on the traverse bars, and like I did well, so like that was exciting too. And I think like that was fun. But honestly, like games workouts aren't like, I don't want to say they're not fun, but like they're not fun. Like they hurt, they're hard. What's fun is like afterwards when you like get to reflect on it, and like after the sandbag squat event, I like walked through the tunnel, and like Justin was there, and like the hype that he had, like the emotional like excitement I had, like that's what's fun. I'm not gonna lie to you, like biking and thrusters and like dying in workouts isn't like fun. It's just like, yeah, you already know all this.
Totally. But it's also something that it's important for people to know, right? Like you have the bravery and the courage to do hard things, and you don't always want to do them. They're not always comfortable. They're not rainbows and butterflies, but you do them. And then on the other side, you get to smile, you get to self-reflect, and then you get to celebrate with your team. And I think that's a really cool element. And I think you put up a post. I want to say the quote was around like, hey, you know, alone we can go so far, but together we can, you know, go way further. And you kind of mentioned certain people on your team. Who are the members of your team that really stand out, that have helped support you in your quest to be the fifth fittest on earth?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, my husband's huge. Like, he's there day in and day out, and like having that support is tremendous. And then like Underdogs as a whole, like Justin as my coach, and the whole community there has been really great. I don't want to like say everyone because I'm afraid I'm gonna miss someone if I don't like have all my thoughts.
Totally. No, I definitely align with that. It's very hard to list everybody.
But like, there's so many people, like friends that I work with at the gym and friends back home, everyone at the gym back home. Like, it's really so many people, family. Like, it's a big crowd.
As you used to fly under the radar a little bit, now you're humbly going to go on a little bit of a podcast tour. Everybody wants to talk to you because you've got all this notoriety. You've proven certain elements of your fitness, your mindset, and your capacity, which means that there's going to be people like Brian Friend putting you into rankings and predictions, and you get to, you know, talk to Tommy and Lauren and some of the different people from Talking Elite Fitness, Sean Woodland being another one. You're in the conversation, and you're definitely part of, you know, the prediction conversation now. How does that impact you, and is it a motivating factor sometimes when they don't include you in those conversations?
It's motivating. Justin and I always joke because Brian Friend, like, kind of just downplayed me real big all season. Like, I think after semifinals, he had me at like 18th at the games or something. And Justin was all fired up, and it was just like kind of motivation. But like, I try not to take it personal. Like, people are just doing their jobs or whatever they think is right. And it was so funny at the games. I met John Young. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, okay. I met John Young, and he kind of looked like guilty, I feel like, when he met me, because he had like, I don't remember what he said, but he essentially just was like, I don't think Alex is getting top 10 or whatever that might be. And he like was like, hi, I'm sorry. It was so funny.
I think it's cool though that like you take it upon yourself, and Justin probably helps a little bit too, to be like, let's prove them wrong. Let's take this, let's use it to develop additional motivation. And I mean, as athletes, because every day is hard and it definitely has its challenges, you almost have to look for the things that push those buttons in your mind to be like, no, I'm going to find that extra gear today.
Totally.
When it comes to gears, I've heard you mention that previously it was like, sometimes it was survival of workouts. Other times it was like, you knew that you could win certain things, like the legless rope climb workout from last year's Granite Games. But this year, it sounds like you got to know yourself a little bit better, and you knew when to push those gears and when to back off a little bit in the midst of, you know, certain workouts or even different rounds within workouts. Like even when you look at Helena that starts at the run, the pack started fast. That first run, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could see heart rates right now, because they stepped on the gas pedal right off the bat. But then it becomes this little game of mindset tinkering a little bit of like, oh, I'm going to push this element. I'm going to back off here a little bit. I'm going to sprint past this person so they think I'm less tired than I really am, but then I'm going to back off a little bit to let my heart rate come down. And there's this whole gamification around who's got the right gears at the right time. How have you managed that and developed those tools of like knowing when to push and when to back off and trusting it?
I'm still learning that one. That one's like that's been a big factor, like that Justin and I talk about, is like just knowing when to kick into that last gear and like going for it. Because I think I struggled like last year with like kind of just being a little too conservative a lot. But it's been kind of fun to just like jump in and then see if you can swim.
I like that. It's great bravery and great courage. When you're looking back at, you know, your season, and now you're entering the off season a little bit. We've got different off season qualifiers. We've got different off season competitions. I know we chatted briefly offline, but what's your motivating factor right now that you're in the off season, you're on the other side of being the 5th fittest on the planet, and you've got Rogue coming up, there's Dubai, there's lots of different options. What's kind of floating in between your ears around off-season motivation and next competitions?
Obviously Rogue's coming up, and my hope is to compete there and do well. But honestly, just like we talked about before, just keep chipping away, and my hope is to be in the sport for a while. And so I try not to put timelines necessarily on like any big goals, but like I would love to podium or win the CrossFit Games one day, and I feel like this season, like every other one, is just like a stepping stone along the way.
For sure. No, I definitely admired that. It's a great headspace to have. And when you look at now finishing so well this last season, what's the pressure like? What is the social media pressure and the expectations? I'm sure brands are knocking on your door and calling and emailing around, trying to have next steps. What's that journey been like, and balancing all of that with your day-to-day?
The pressure's been like, I don't know, it's like definitely more increased because now it's like a job, and there's like financial things on the line, like based on your performance, and like you can make really good money if you do well at competitions. So like that's definitely a factor, and I don't know, I feel like social media, a lot of that is like financial too, because like your followers is kind of what dictates a lot of your sponsorships, just because it's not like the NFL where it's like just based on your playing. Like it's really based on like social media, since CrossFit isn't as big of a niche. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is pressure in that regard, but I don't feel, and like I just feel like myself still.
I like that. Never lose that, by the way. That's something that'll stay with you. Yeah, that's something that'll stay with you every step of the way. And coming up, you've got the ultimate Hawaiian trail run. What are you most looking forward to on that adventure?
I'm so excited. Just like the community in Kauai is amazing, and I'm just really excited to like. A lot of people are going. You're going. Like Danny's going. I think the Buttery Bros are going. Like it's just gonna be so fun, and like to do something for a good cause and like be in such a beautiful place. It's gonna be so fun.
Absolutely.
And the food there is really good.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Alex, you've done some really cool things in your CrossFit career so far. I love when I get to connect with you and peek behind the curtain of some of your experiences, both overcoming the challenge of transitioning at such a young age, connecting with some of the challenges that you faced with your parents early on, but every step of the way maintaining a high dosage of kindness and love and support for the world. It's impressive. It's really cool. The way you separate identity from performance is really cool. As we wrap things up today, is there any advice that you would love to share with our community?
Have fun. I mean, nothing's worth doing if you don't enjoy it. And listen to your body. I feel like that's a huge one, especially if you're younger. Like, don't rush training if you're hurting or if you need a rest day. Like, I'm like reflecting on like any injuries that I've had, whether they're like big or small, and like they always just come because I was impatient and I wanted to be better now. And there's a lot of time to be better.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Well, enjoy your off season. I look forward to seeing you at the trail run and then also at Rogue. Enjoy your day. I know the heat is probably scorching out there in Vegas, so try to stay cool as best you can.
Thanks. I hope you have a good day. Thanks for having me. This was fun, and I'm excited to hang out with you in Hawaii. That'll be fun.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. For those of you listening, if you enjoyed my conversation with the 5th fittest woman on earth and the most improved CrossFit Games athlete, Alex Gazan, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Until next time, guys, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. We are beyond excited to be working with Wizard Sciences for total brain and body optimization. This partnership came through personal experience with the benefits of their incredible product line and a deep human connection with their founder and former guest, Ion Mitchell. I also love the Neural RX, which I take before every podcast. Some of the benefits I experience when taking the Neural are enhanced memory and focus, supercharged learning and knowledge absorption, along with enhanced creativity and innovation. Break free from mental blocks, tap into your imagination, and watch your creativity soar to new heights. Give Wizard Sciences a try and become as close to limitless as you can get. Use code Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order. Once again, that's Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order. Are you over 35 and in need of a solid training program? Are you looking to improve your athleticism and keep up with the younger athletes in your CrossFit gym? Then look no further than our Invictus Masters program. This program places year-round emphasis on mobility and stability exercises with movements that we have seen directly benefit our Masters athletes. Our program is led by Nicole DeHart and offers a training program designed specifically for Masters athletes who are looking to compete at a higher level in the sport of CrossFit. Some of our top Masters athletes in the world train with us, including CrossFit Games champion Kevin Kester, Matt Beals, and Pat Sprague. You can learn more about their stories and the Invictus Masters program by checking out their episodes right here on the Invictus Mindset Podcast. If you'd like more information about the current training cycle or to join the Invictus Masters program, please email Nicole at invictusathlete.com. That's NICHOLE at invictusathlete.com.